I was born in Macclesfield, just south of Manchester, and to a certain extent the idea of becoming an artist was absolutely an accident. I have difficulty kind of putting a categorical or binary label on anything that I make because the practice is so inherently bound up with other types of creative making, whether that is screen printing or writing or drawing. In terms of content, materials, colours, outlines, all of these things, I spend really an extreme amount of time kind of diagramming the relationships between everything, and more often than not, once I've started making, I know almost without fail exactly what the end result is going to be. Of course, something like wood or concrete or paper comes with a sort of predefined set of expectations, how we expect these materials to be used. So sculpture as a sort of classic categorization is useful to one extent because yes, the majority of things I make are tangible, three-dimensional things, but my practice is sort of so expanded as well into other positions of making that I would never describe myself with authority as a sculptor. The work in the Hepworth show, for instance, was never destined to be shown together, and more often than not I'm surprised at the kind of combinations of things. So it's a good challenge to kind of have to bring them back to life. I think more than anything I'm deeply interested in sort of substance and language and the capacity of the two to interrelate and respond to one another, and whether that conversation is generative or corrupting, I'm not sure yet.
I've made so much art, you know. I mean, a lot of art. It's one of the big problems that there was a time I never signed my art with my name. So this is a big problem for art historians to find out my artworks from 1960 to 1980. I'm not really. I wouldn't call myself a sculptor because a sculptor is one who shapes things out of whatever was there. I shape things more out of my head. The thing I like about the Stitching Time is it's public and private at the same time. It's just people invited to stitch anything they like, their name, an image, a memory. When you're stitching, it's your own private space. You know, it's just you. I think of the idea, then I find a way to solve it. But I'm not really you know, there are some really amazing sculptors that work with their hands. You know, I don't, I'm small. You know? But you can work with an idea. We all change, but certain things remain basic. You could say what really inspires me is daily life. And it's so simple, and it's not mystifying.
I wouldn't say I wanted to be an artist. I never saw artists and wanted to be like them. I just wanted to do the things that I liked doing. And in a way, it's a very universal way of operating in the world. I can accommodate all of the things that I'm interested in under one umbrella. I do make objects. I sometimes co-opt pre-existing objects, adapt them. Often I play with the notion of truth there, and you could call it fakery. For instance, some of the things I'm showing appear to be chromed. I'm also making a piece that looks like cast iron, but actually it's just painted to look like that. So there's all these different outcomes that happen with sculpture. I just set it in motion. We're accustomed to seeing public sculpture and not knowing who the hell these people were, whether they were benevolent, charitable individuals or dastardly imperialists. And so I kind of took the bearded man originally as almost, the way I deal with it, it's almost ambivalent. You imbue it with whatever you have drawn into your world. In the show, I've tried to bring together objects which have not necessarily been shown together before. I think objects experience different pressures when they're in storage, when they're in a commercial environment, when they're in a museum environment, or when they're in the studio being manufactured. They change their nature due to those kind of cultural pressures. And in relation to one another, I think they're going to create a dialogue, as I was saying before, a kind of constellation of objects which will start to trigger new readings between the objects. Really, I think if I can do anything as an artist, I want to make something that sets itself into the world and can be engaged with productively.
There's a moment comes where I think I've walked the walk and I've talked the talk, and now the time is to just throw caution to the wind and do exactly what I want to do. I left school at 16. It was quite normal to go to art school at 16 in the 60s and 50s, you know. One of the sculpture tutors, he said, look, you're using paint like clay, why don't you use some clay? So every Friday there was a sculpture class, so I went to this class, and it didn't take much for me to just know that that was the medium I wanted to work in. As a language, sculpture as a language, I think has a vast amount to contribute, and that's very different from sculpture as the mute, dumb object on a plinth. It's a constant state of rehearsal that then, when the audience, the viewers arrive, that is the performance. I think artists don't stop evolving. I mean, the energy to keep on trying to make things be surprising and exciting isn't going to wither on the vine. And I think a lot of artists of my age feel that. I think there's something that I'm striving for, which is to give it that sense of awkwardness or imbalance, or even a slightly argumentative, quarrelsome relationship with the space, which I hope differentiates it from everyday objects in the world.